I was really situating the discussion more in a recent dichotomy that really goes back to the important writing by Oscar Coleman, the New Testament scholar, who raises the question immortality of the soul or resurrection of the body, in which case this is kind of taken on and influenced a massive amount of biblical literature on the subject. And so this was really the dialectical context in which I was primarily focused. Certainly early on, I gave some reasons why we should believe in the soul and why the Bible affirms the soul or yields the soul doctrine because of the doctrine of the disembodied intermediate state. And from that, I was teasing out a further implication that some kind of immortality doctrine is actually true and we should believe it. And furthermore, that the whole church has believed it, and so we should further believe it. That's further corroborating evidence or buttressing evidence for the fact that we should actually believe it. But let me just read this quote by Oscar Coleman because I think it will situate the dialectic that I was having in the discussion and clarify, hopefully, some of the issues at stake. And there's a lot of other issues to deal with, of course, but I want to clarify this contextually in this context, because this is the dialectic, this is the dichotomy that's been set up and that has influenced and shaped a great deal of biblical literature that is problematically or problematizing and conflating the soul, the immortality issue, as well as with the Greek sort of hermeneutical tradition that takes seriously Hellenistic Greek thought as important to our hermeneutical practice and our reading and appropriation of the Bible itself. So let me read this briefly, and hopefully it makes some sense. Well, there's a radical difference between the Christian expectation of the resurrection of the dead and the Greek belief in the immortality of the soul. Although Christianity later established a link between these two beliefs, and today the average Christian confuses them completely, I see no reason to hide what I and the majority of scholars consider to be the truth. The life and thought of the New Testament are entirely dominated by faith in the resurrection. The whole man who is really dead is brought back to life by a new creative act of God. End quote. So this famous statement really crystallizes the debate and the dialectic that I was seeking to have in as I was engaging with certain prominent thinkers today that have, in many ways, dominated a lot of the discussions about what it is that we're made of and how that relates to the afterlife itself. It's this dichotomy between the resurrection of the body and the immortality of the soul doctrine that I was really after. It was that dialectic and that one that I think is actually conflated and confused. These are not incompatible, and I showed that, in fact, one provides logical coherence to the other in a way that's actually important to the hope of the Christian itself, so that there are two different types of hope. There's the immediate hope of the soul's persistence into the afterlife, which I suggested entails a form of immortality, as well as the hope of the physical resurrection of the body. And these are not incompatible. In fact, they are related, and they provide sort of they're coherently related, arguably. And this further issue about what the church says, which I did talk about that a little bit, I think, but there's much more to say about that. The church has been clear on this, arguably. The Christian church has been clear on this. The Christian church has affirmed that we're not only souls throughout most of the ecclesiastical, creedal, as well as confessional statements in the dominant sub-traditions that comprise the Catholic Christianity across the ages and universally. This has been and is quite clear. And so that deserves some commentary. So even if I was situating the discussion in that particular dialectic that Coleman was bringing up, and I might have suggested or said a bit more about that, I didn't deal specifically with some of the other more fine nuances of what precisely is meant by immortality and why or why not even the conditionalist view or certain conditionalist views that are out there are inconsistent with the whole canon of Scripture, and certainly the way that the church itself has appropriated and received the Scriptures themselves. I wasn't dealing with that issue specifically, but maybe I should.